And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much. Not least of all because the monarchy is about continuity. But I think for my brother, this is something he's been waiting for.
For generations, Buckingham Palace has been presented as a symbol of stability, tradition, and carefully guarded royal secrets, yet reports of a mysterious overnight security incident involving Princess Anne and Tom Parker Bowles have sparked intense speculation about what may have happened behind one of the monarchy's most restricted doors. While no official evidence has confirmed the dramatic claims now circulating online, the questions surrounding that night refused to disappear, and what happened next only made the mystery even more intriguing. According to reports that have spread across royal discussion circles, the story began during the early hours of the morning when an alert was allegedly triggered inside a highly secured section connected to Buckingham Palace. At first, Palace staff reportedly believed the activation was nothing more than a routine technical issue, the kind of malfunction that occasionally affects older security systems operating inside historic royal properties. However, as internal checks reportedly continued, concern quickly started growing among those responsible for monitoring overnight palace activity. What transformed a routine security review into a much larger controversy was the claim that movement had allegedly been detected in a corridor connected to a restricted archive or vault area, a location that many royal observers believe would normally remain inaccessible without significant authorization. Reports suggest that security personnel reviewing access records were surprised to discover references linking the activity to Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla. Whether those reports are accurate remains unclear, but the allegation alone was enough to ignite widespread curiosity. And this is where the story begins taking a far more dramatic turn. Because the focus was no longer on a security alert, the focus suddenly became about access, authorization, and the uncomfortable question of how anyone connected to the royal family could allegedly appear near one of the monarchy's most protected locations without immediately triggering a much larger response. As speculation intensified, palace watchers began asking whether special permissions existed behind the scenes or whether the entire story had been exaggerated beyond recognition. Reports suggest that Princess Anne was informed about the situation shortly afterward, and those familiar with Princess Anne's reputation know why that detail immediately attracted attention. Unlike many senior members of the royal family, Princess Anne has long been associated with discipline, procedure, and a reputation for taking royal responsibilities extremely seriously. If Princess Anne truly became involved at an early stage, many observers believe that alone would indicate the matter was being treated with unusual seriousness behind palace walls. Yet the mystery did not stop there. As rumors continued spreading, new questions emerged regarding what exactly might exist inside any restricted royal archive connected to Buckingham Palace. Royal historians have frequently noted that institutions such as the British monarchy preserve generations of correspondence, historical records, ceremonial documents, and family materials that are rarely seen by the public. That reality created the perfect environment for speculation to flourish, with some commentators wondering whether the alleged incident involved nothing more than administrative confusion, while others suggested something much larger might have been unfolding behind closed doors. What would you think if reports suddenly claimed that a member of Queen Camilla's family had been linked to unusual activity near one of the monarchy's most protected locations? Would you assume there was a reasonable explanation waiting to emerge, or would you believe there was more to the story than palace officials were willing to reveal? Those questions became even more difficult to ignore because of the silence that followed. Neither Buckingham Palace nor senior royal officials publicly embraced many of the dramatic claims appearing online, yet the absence of clear explanations allowed rumors to multiply rapidly. Every unanswered question seemed to create three more. Every theory generated an even bigger theory. Before long, the conversation had expanded beyond Tom Parker Bowles and Princess, and drawing in broader discussions about transparency, royal security, and the way sensitive matters are handled inside the institution surrounding King Charles III. Meanwhile, online commentators began connecting the alleged incident to wider tensions already surrounding the modern royal family. Discussions quickly expanded to include King Charles III, Queen Camilla, Prince William, the future king, and even Catherine, Princess of Wales, as observers debated how the monarchy manages internal challenges away from public view. Although there is no verified evidence supporting many of the more dramatic theories, the public fascination surrounding the story continued growing because mysteries involving the royal family rarely remain confined behind palace gates for very long. And as more people started asking what really happened that night, an even more unsettling possibility began emerging. Because according to several reports, the biggest concern was not whether unusual activity occurred near the restricted area. The bigger concern was whether palace officials themselves disagreed about how the situation should be handled. If that claim proves true, then the story may be about far more than a single overnight incident. It may be about competing priorities, institutional protection, and a growing struggle over accountability inside the monarchy itself. Before we continue, if you enjoy thoughtful royal investigations and in-depth analysis of the royal family, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss future updates. And with Princess and reportedly demanding answers while questions continued surrounding Tom Parker Bowles, what happened during the next phase of the alleged investigation would push the controversy into even more uncomfortable territory. Princess and reportedly moved quickly once questions surrounding the alleged overnight incident began spreading through palace circles. According to reports, Princess and was not satisfied with vague explanations or assumptions, especially when the discussion involved an area believed to be connected to some of Buckingham Palace's most restricted archives. Whether the claims were accurate or not, the situation had already grown beyond a routine security matter. The issue now centered on accountability, and Princess and reportedly wanted answers. What made the situation even more sensitive was the growing debate over how access to such a protected location could have occurred in the first place. Reports suggest that some officials believe there may have been a legitimate explanation connected to internal authorization procedures, while others allegedly questioned whether existing security protocols had been followed correctly. That disagreement reportedly created tension behind closed doors, with different voices inside the institution pushing competing narratives about what had actually happened. Yet the deeper officials looked, the more complicated the story seemed to become. As discussions continued, attention reportedly shifted toward records connected to the restricted area itself. Some reports claimed that inventory reviews uncovered inconsistencies, while others argued that administrative confusion may have been exaggerated into something far more dramatic. Without public confirmation, nobody outside Buckingham Palace could know for certain. However, the mere suggestion that questions existed about archive materials immediately fueled a new wave of speculation across royal media circles. What would you think if an alleged security concern suddenly evolved into questions about historical records and restricted archives? Would that raise even more curiosity about what investigators were actually looking for? For Princess, and reports suggest the focus was no longer simply on who entered a corridor or when the movement occurred. The larger issue may have been whether weaknesses inside existing palace procedures had remained unnoticed for years. If vulnerabilities truly existed, then the implications would extend far beyond a single incident involving Tom Parker Bowles. The controversy would become a broader discussion about trust, oversight, and how the modern monarchy protects its most sensitive information. And while those questions continued building behind palace walls, an even larger challenge was quietly approaching. Because the longer uncertainty remained, the greater the risk that details would begin leaking beyond private meetings and into the public arena, creating a completely different crisis for King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and the royal family. What happened next would transform an internal controversy into a story that could no longer be contained. The controversy took a dramatic new turn when reports began suggesting that information connected to the alleged incident was no longer confined to private palace discussions. According to royal commentators and various online sources, rumors surrounding the restricted area were beginning to spread beyond Buckingham Palace, creating growing concern among officials responsible for protecting the monarchy's public image. What may have started as an internal review was now becoming a story that people across Britain wanted explained. For King Charles III, the situation reportedly presented a difficult challenge. On one side was the need to preserve stability within the institution, while on the other was the growing demand for transparency from both royal observers and members of the public. Reports suggest that palace advisors were divided over how much information should be acknowledged, and whether addressing the speculation directly would calm public curiosity or make the situation even more difficult to control. At the same time, Queen Camilla reportedly faced increasing scrutiny because many of the rumors centered on Tom Parker Bowles. Although there has been no verified evidence proving wrongdoing, the connection alone ensured that attention remained fixed on the story. Every discussion about the alleged incident seemed to lead back to the same question. Why was Tom Parker Bowles reportedly linked to activity near such a sensitive area in the first place? And this is where the situation became even more uncomfortable. The longer clear answers failed to emerge, the more theories began appearing. Some commentators argued that the entire controversy had been exaggerated through online speculation, while others believed the lack of detailed explanations only encouraged public suspicion. The royal family has experienced many difficult headlines over the years, but uncertainty often creates a unique problem because people naturally try to fill information gaps with their own conclusions. What would you believe if you were watching this unfold from the outside? Would you assume the story was simply being overstated, or would you wonder whether important details remained hidden behind palace walls? Meanwhile, reports suggest that Princess and remained focused on obtaining a complete understanding of what happened rather than allowing the matter to quietly disappear. That determination reportedly created further tension among those who believed the monarchy's reputation should take priority over prolonged investigation. As disagreements continued behind closed doors, the controversy was no longer just about a mysterious night inside Buckingham Palace. The story was evolving into a larger struggle involving reputation, accountability, and control of the narrative itself. And just when officials were reportedly hoping the attention might begin fading, a new development threatened to make the situation far more public than anyone inside the palace expected. Any hope of keeping the controversy confined to private palace discussions reportedly began fading once claims emerged that details connected to the alleged incident were circulating among journalists, royal commentators, and online communities. While no official confirmation supported many of the stories appearing across social media, the speed at which the rumors spread created a completely new problem for Buckingham Palace. The challenge was no longer investigating what may or may not have happened. The challenge was preventing public speculation from overtaking the facts. According to reports, communications advisors connected to the royal household allegedly began monitoring growing media interest surrounding the story. Every new article, discussion thread, and royal commentary video seemed to introduce another theory. Some focused on Tom Parker Bowles and the questions surrounding access to the restricted area. Others concentrated on Princess and in her reported insistence that the matter deserved serious scrutiny. The result was a rapidly expanding narrative that became increasingly difficult for palace officials to manage. What made the situation particularly challenging was the absence of a clear public explanation. History has shown that when questions remain unanswered, speculation often fills the vacuum. In this case, commentators began debating everything from palace security procedures to the handling of sensitive royal records. Some observers argued that there was likely a straightforward explanation hidden beneath the headlines. Others believed the continued silence suggested that officials were struggling to agree on how the situation should be addressed. And then another troubling possibility began attracting attention. Several royal analysts started discussing whether the controversy was exposing deeper issues within the institution itself rather than simply highlighting a single incident. Questions emerged about oversight, internal communication, and whether different factions inside the palace viewed the matter in completely different ways. If reports of disagreement were accurate, then the controversy could represent something much larger than the public initially realized. The discussion was gradually shifting from an overnight mystery to concerns about how the monarchy responds when unexpected problems arise behind closed doors. What would you do if you were responsible for protecting the reputation of the royal family? Would you release more information to reduce speculation, or would you remain silent and hope public attention eventually moved elsewhere? As pressure continued building, King Charles III reportedly found himself facing an increasingly delicate balancing act. Protecting the stability of the monarchy remained essential, yet ignoring public curiosity carried risks of its own. Meanwhile, Princess and reportedly remained committed to obtaining clarity, while discussions involving Queen Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles continued attracting significant attention from royal observers. Every development seemed to create new questions rather than provide definitive answers. By this stage, the controversy had evolved far beyond the original reports. The focus was no longer limited to a restricted corridor or disputed access records. Instead, attention was turning toward the monarchy's ability to manage uncertainty during an age when information travels faster than ever before. And just as officials were reportedly attempting to regain control of the narrative, rumors of internal divisions began emerging, threatening to push the story into an even more dramatic phase. By the time the controversy reached its final stage, the alleged incident had become far more than a question about activity near a restricted area inside Buckingham Palace. What continued capturing public attention was the growing perception that different priorities were colliding behind palace walls. According to reports, some figures within the institution reportedly believed the focus should remain on protecting the monarchy from another damaging public dispute, while others argued that unanswered questions would only create greater problems in the future. At the center of many discussions stood Princess Anne, whose reported determination to pursue clarity had become one of the defining elements of the story. Royal observers frequently described Princess Anne as one of the most disciplined and duty-focused members of the royal family, which is why reports of Princess Anne demanding answers resonated with so many people following the controversy. Whether every rumor was accurate or not, the image of Princess Anne refusing to ignore unresolved questions helped sustain public interest long after the initial reports appeared. Meanwhile, King Charles III reportedly faced the difficult responsibility of maintaining unity during a period of growing speculation. Every institution depends on public confidence, and the monarchy is no exception. Reports suggest that advisors remain concerned about how continued uncertainty could affect public perception, particularly when discussions involve sensitive subjects such as security, accountability, and internal decision-making. Balancing those concerns while avoiding further controversy was never going to be simple. At the same time, Queen Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles remained closely linked to the narrative because many of the original claims centered around that connection. Although no verified evidence has publicly confirmed many of the dramatic allegations circulating online, the absence of definitive answers ensured that curiosity never fully disappeared. For some observers, the story represented a lesson about how quickly speculation can grow. For others, the unanswered questions remain the most fascinating part of the entire controversy. But perhaps the most important issue was never the alleged incident itself. Perhaps the real story was what the reaction revealed about the modern royal family. In an era of constant media coverage, instant communication, and relentless public scrutiny, even a small mystery can evolve into a major discussion about transparency, trust, and institutional credibility. The speed with which this controversy expanded demonstrated how difficult it has become for any major institution, including the monarchy, to control a narrative once public curiosity takes hold. So what do you think? Was this entire story the result of exaggerated rumors and online speculation, or do you believe important questions still deserve answers? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because this debate continues to divide royal watchers around the world. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into royal mysteries, royal drama, and the hidden dynamics surrounding King Charles III, Queen Camilla, Princess, and Prince William, the future king, and the wider royal family, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us for future investigations. Because when it comes to Buckingham Palace, the stories that attract the most attention are often the ones that leave the biggest questions unanswered.